The neck cork of a saxophone creates a seal between the mouthpiece and the rest of the instrument. As the neck cork ages, it may compress, become brittle, fall off, or a combination of these scenarios. If you have recently changed mouthpieces, you may find your new mouthpiece is no longer compatible with your existing neck cork, as individual mouthpieces may fit differently. Should you find yourself in any of these situations, you may consider replacing your neck cork. In this video, I will show you my method for replacing a saxophone neck cork. As always, if you are not comfortable doing this work yourself, I have no doubt that your local repair tech would love to help you out. Here's what you'll need to replace your saxophone neck cork: the saxophone neck, your mouthpiece, natural sheet cork or a pre-cut saxophone neck cork. I prefer 1/16 inch thickness cork, contact cement, denatured alcohol or another solvent that will also degrease and clean, razor blades, a ruler or straight edge, a mallet, a dowel, or even a rolling pin, masking tape, coarse grit sandpaper, I'm using 120 grit, wax and or cork grease, and possibly a screwdriver. If the neck has an octave key on it, consider taking it off to prevent the possibility of bending it while working. Use a small screwdriver to remove the key and set aside. If the neck cork has not already fallen off, you will need to remove it. There are several ways to remove the old cork. If part of the cork has already broken away, you may be able to simply peel or slide it off the neck. You can also gently scrape the old cork from the neck using a razor blade. Use caution and always scrape away from yourself. My personal preference for removing old neck corks is to use a hot air torch, which gently heats and loosens the old adhesive from the inside. Depending on the glue, it may take more or less effort. Should you choose to use heat to remove the old cork, be sure to wrap a towel or cloth around the main part of the neck to avoid burning your hand. Once the old cork is removed, clean off any remaining old adhesive. I typically use denatured alcohol, which is available at your local hardware store. However, there are other solvents which are safe to use. Next, we will cut the new neck cork. If you are using a pre-cut saxophone neck cork, you can likely skip the next few steps if you are happy with the width of your pre-cut cork. There are a few ways to determine the width of your new neck cork. You may be able to use the old cork as a reference either by measuring its width before or after it's removed, or oftentimes you can find a faint marking on the neck where the old cork stopped. If you cannot utilize the old cork to determine the width, I typically cut the new neck cork at around 35 millimeters for most alto and tenor saxophone necks. Once you have determined the appropriate width of the new cork, mark your sheet with a pen or pencil or a small notch using a razor blade. For accuracy, I recommend marking either side of the sheet and aligning your straight edge to each mark, ensuring a nice straight line. Using a sharp razor blade, cut along your straight edge to create a long rectangular strip. With the razor blade, carefully bevel or angle one short end of the cork strip starting about 5 millimeters from the end. This will be hidden once we wrap the cork around the neck. I find the beveling technique provides better adhesion in the end. However, I know some use a technique of butting the two ends of cork together. Next, I like to gently soften the cork so that it more easily wraps around the neck when installed. To do this, you can use a small mallet, a dowel, or even a rolling pin with gentle pressure to soften or roll the cork. Make sure the beveled side of the cork is facing down on your work surface. This will be the outside of your new neck cork. Once the cork is softened, do a quick test wrap to see if it's pliable. If not, go back over it to soften it a bit more. This step is very important. If the cork is too stiff or brittle, there's a good chance it will break when you go to wrap it around the neck. Apply adhesive to the cork and the neck. I use contact cement, which can be found at your local hardware store. Apply a thin layer of contact cement to the back, inner side, and beveled end of the cork. Apply a thin layer of contact cement to the neck as well. Do your best to match the width of the glued area on the neck to the width of your cork. As you may or may not know, contact cement requires application to either side of whatever it is you're gluing, and each side must dry completely before attempting to join the two parts. Be patient here. I typically wait about 5 minutes or so for the pieces to dry. When each glued piece is dry, install a cork onto the neck. Take your time and be mindful of joining the two sides. You only have one chance once the cork and neck are bonded. Start by adhering the beveled end of the cork to the neck, lining up the edge of the cork with the ring or end of the neck. I personally start on the underside of the neck so the seam is less noticeable, but it doesn't really matter. To ensure the beveled end is bonded to the neck, gently press the cork with your ruler or straight edge. If you use your hand or fingers, you risk dirt or oils from your skin interfering with the glue, which could result in poor adhesion. Gently begin wrapping the rest of the cork around the neck. Again, taking your time to line up the edge of the cork with the neck ring or end of the neck. Once you have reached the beveled end, continue wrapping the cork so that it covers and adheres to itself. There will be excess cork. Apply gentle pressure to the seam to ensure good adhesion. Cut off excess cork, being mindful of the surrounding cork. You don't want to cut into the wrapped area. I recommend saving the scrap cork for later repairs or projects. In an effort to protect the finish of the neck, wrap a piece of masking tape around the exposed part of the neck where the new neck cork stops. Using sandpaper or a coarse file, gently sculpt the ridge at the seam to blend with the diameter of the surrounding area. At this point, it may look finished, but not quite. You will need to size the cork to your mouthpiece. I advise doing an initial mouthpiece fit before any sanding. This will give you a rough idea of how much cork you need to remove. Remember, different brand mouthpieces may fit differently and require more or less sanding. In the end, you'll want the mouthpiece to fit the cork snugly to ensure no air escapes between the cork and the mouthpiece. Using sandpaper, carefully sand and remove cork as evenly as possible. To maintain a cylindrical shape, I like to begin at the back side of the cork and work my way forward. Though the saxophone neck is conical, creating a cylindrical neck cork will allow you to easily adjust your mouthpiece placement, and the cork will compress more evenly over time. As you sand, be sure to rotate the neck as to not create a flat spot, and check mouthpiece fit often. Again, your final product should result in a snug fit. I have a bench peg installed in my shop to make this task much easier. However, if you don't have the means to install a bench peg, you can attempt this process by hand, though it is admittedly more tricky and time-consuming. Once you have reached your desired mouthpiece fit, you can coat the new cork with a thin layer of wax and/or cork grease. Applying wax first will result in longer neck cork life as it blocks the cork grease from penetrating through to the underlying adhesive. You can either use cool, dry paraffin wax and gently rub the wax into the surface of the new cork, or I often use melted candle wax. I just recommend using a white or off-white wax to prevent any discoloration. Plus, it smells good. Creamy vanilla cupcake. Check the mouthpiece fit once more, which may result in excess wax or cork grease scraping off. Remove the masking tape and clean up any glue residue using alcohol or solvent. And voila! Your new saxophone neck cork is ready to go. This seemingly simple task actually takes a bit of practice to get top-notch results, so don't be discouraged if your first attempt doesn't go as planned. Feel free to reach out or comment below if you have any questions. Good luck and happy saxophoning!